call this work session to order for Jamestown City Council tonight. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Here.
Blackman. Here. Karuba. Here. Reynolds.
Here.
Faulkner.
Here.
Eklund. Here. Diversa.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
And President Bolt.
Here. At this time, I'll let opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone here that'd like to speak and address the council, please state your name, address, and limit your remark to 5 minutes. Anybody like to address the council?
Yes, I'm Doug Champion of 225 Homelessness in Jamestown, New York. I got a few topics tonight. First one, as I presented to the Public Safety Committee, was the need for the further discussion on our needs in this community to up the need for the control of gun violence, and then also the issues associated with manpower. We seem to have gone ahead with the vehicle issues, and that's a great thing, and technology in terms of radio enhancement. But I believe it's time to understand that we can't solve violence without people solving it for us, and that's our police department. And I would hate to spend down $28 million and not see some type of reinvestment in public safety. That is also the fire department as well. You heard me talk about this before. I think it's now up to the city council and the city council people to decide where they want to go with this. And I suggested that if there is an issue regarding the future of public safety, it could be handled by a master plan that would evaluate where we're at, where we need to go, and what the future's like. That can be done, and it should be done. The needs are there, it's prevalent. Like I said before, some years ago, decades ago, was involved with a Hickey study, and some of that information can be resurrected again. And I think both chiefs would support the need for this. They can voice their own concerns. But I'm here, as I always will have, be to point myself at the direction of public safety and the importance of it for all of us. The second thing, I got three things actually. The second thing is that I think it's time now for the city to invest in an American Rescue Plan matrix system, to acknowledge what's being spent, how it's being spent, what the progression of that spending plan is. Contracts, vehicle purchases, all, as we go through this time frame of acquiring whatever it is that we want to do. It's got to be an acknowledgement to the public. After all, you are the caretakers of the public funds here, of how that money's being spent down. So a matrix plan, looking at what's already been spent and having it on the city's website, where you have the measuring out of the costs that are being spent on, and then also the costs that remain to be spent for. So I think each activity, each action should be acknowledged as such so that people can be informed of where this money's going. And I realize you're going to have accountability and compliance and et cetera, but we can't wait for all this stuff to be initiated. It should be something that's happening now, because it'd be interesting to find out, well, how much money's been allocated already out of the plan, and where is that going? What's next? How is it going to work? The third thing I want to talk about has to do with homeless housing, which is a great need in our community and has been for years. And the presentation tonight, not to really get into what the gentleman will be talking about, but I think it's critical to realize that what I've been trying to do in this community for a long time is create a profile small house. What that small house would be like for not just normal citizens, but homeless people. And now there's a major effort across this country called Tiny Houses for Homeless, an affordable solution. There just happens to be a development like this in Ithaca, New York. 4 are cited: Austin, Texas, one in, I think, out west, and another one in the south. They are examples of detached houses where homeless people live. Children with their mothers, men trying to recover. All of this can be done. Nothing wrong with what's being proposed in the building for renewal, but the key to people getting back into life is living in their own place and not being in an apartment for a long time. So I will forward this information about tiny houses for the homeless. In addition to that, I'm going to have a discussion with Buffalo Bills. This is a company that builds small homes, about prefabricated buildings that they are building now. They've been cited one of the best ones in the country out in New York State. So we're going to have a discussion about that, which I'd be willing to share because I don't think any progress being made at all on the necessity of a housing model for the future. We can throw all the money we want into rehab, and we can hope for the best. But the key to what we need to do in this city is to have a new housing model for the future. That can be built slab on grade, high energy efficient, with all the new modern standards necessary. Small enough, the footprint can be done. We should do this and think about it now. Because if you're going to have a housing program and an American Rescue Plan, you're going to throw all the money into rehab, it's not going to work. We need something new. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to, we'll go to housing first, and then we have a presentation if you want to introduce.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Josiah Lamp, the Director of Housing for the COI, and he's here to discuss a really exciting project to address one of the issues, not only to renovate and rehab a building, but to help the individuals become more stable and move along the COI continuum to a more stable life. So thank you, Dr. Lamp.
Thank you, Marie, and it's good to be with all of you this evening. And again, my name is Josiah Lamp, and Director of Housing with COI. I'm also the president of the Chappaqua County Homeless Coalition, and I've been serving with COI for about 10 years. So homelessness is an issue that we are concerned with as we work in our community, building our community, and the value of self-sufficiency. So I have a presentation here on the new project that we have, which I'm very excited to present. Hopefully the technology works along with us. We have been awarded about $2.49 million from the state of New York and the Homeless Housing Assistance Corporation to address a long-standing need that we have here in the community, which is a shelter for women who are in homeless situations. And so this is something that we've been working on behind the scenes for several years. It's a long-standing community need. You know, we do have other resources for men. We have resources for domestic violence, but we've never had a shelter that's designated specifically for women in our community. And this is a temporary shelter for ideally 30 days, working with the women that we're going to be working with, helping them become able to move back into an apartment on their own. It's a shelter where we can provide more supportive services. Usually what's going on right now is those who are homeless, they're placed in motels. And many of those motels are outside of the downtown area, and so they're not able to access services very easily when someone is placed in a motel. So we need a more caring, more dignified environment, a more supportive environment for those who are homeless in order for them to be able to get out of homelessness quicker. So the good news is that we did receive funding from New York's OTDA and for the Chappaqua Women's Shelter. We just received that news last month. We're happy to help to share that. Also want to say thank you to the city of Jamestown, to the mayor, to Crystal Surdick, Department of Development for partnering on that and actually pledging $110,000 in matching funds for this project. So we're very appreciative, and I know that did help us be able to acquire the funds that we have. We also work closely with the Department of Health and Human Services as a partner in ongoing services. I received funding from the New York State STEP program that will be able to support those who are in the shelter with the support services that they'll need during the time they're in the shelter. So this is the facility that will be rehabbed. It's west of the downtown area, a little bit away from the main downtown area, but still close enough to be walking distance to most of the services. That building will be renovated significantly. If you want to go on to the next slide, it shows just some preliminary schematic designs. It's a 3-floor building. The that's gonna be a community space, a lobby, there'll be a secure entrance, and there'll be a computer lab where the women can come in and look for housing, they can use that to look for employment. Then there will also be a laundry facility, storage facility, and an office space for our staff to work with them while they're in shelter. Then the second and third floors look more like this. The second floor is fully, has fully adaptable units. There'll be a elevator going up to the second floor. And then there's one unit that is fully accessible, which is not something that's we're able to provide in community. We were able to provide that with this project. And then there are one-bedroom apartments with a small kitchenette, a living area, a bedroom and a bathroom. So there's a private living facility for each of the women who will stay in the shelter. The third floor is very similar. It is just the bedrooms are a little larger, and so we're able to have 2 women in each of those units. So in total, there'll be 18 women who will be able to use this shelter at any one time. And we really wanted to design a shelter that is meeting the needs of the community in terms of how many people are homeless at any given time. This is not bigger than the need. This is actually about the exact size of the need of how many people are homeless at any given time, and we look at the data to support that. So, as I mentioned, 18 total beds. Each unit has bathroom, kitchenette, living space, storage space, community room, computer resource room, and laundry room. And then also, I'm going to talk about the services. Oh, safety features. So each door is going to be secured, both the entrances to the building as well as each room. We'll have a fob security system, so only those who are allowed to come into the building will be able to access the building. It's programmable, and so if we need to make a change at some time when somebody's in the facility, we can do that. We will have staff in the building 24/7, which is a requirement of our regulators. And then we're also going to have a sprinkler system and fire code upgrades as part of the renovations. Supportive services. So the most important supportive services is the housing support services. So the staff who will be in the facility will be working with those who are homeless to help them find permanent housing in the community, which usually means going back into a rental unit where they're working with a private landlord, which is usually where most people are coming from. Most people who are coming into shelter services they face some kind of eviction or some kind of housing crisis in that moment, and we want to get them back on their feet in their own unit. And so the staff that we have will be working with them. There's also a conference room, and we provide facilitate other types of services, maybe mental health services to come in and be part of that facility as well. And it's within walking distance of the Department of Health and Human Services and Chicago Works. We have a contract with Chicago Works to make referrals over there, so everybody who is working with our homeless services will have access to employment services as well. So this is the project timeline. So we just got a notice of award, April and May. We are hoping to complete the site acquisition and the closing with the state for this funding. The design, what you saw was preliminary schematic design. We'll finalize the design. It'll go to the building commission, and then we'll begin construction phase in the fall. And that'll be awarded to a general contractor, and hopefully we'll see that finished within 9 to 12 months. The grand opening plan for 2020. That is our hoping and our goals for this project. So that is the project itself. I did have a little bit more information on homelessness in general because I'm an advocate for raising awareness of that in our community. So if you don't mind, I'll just explain a few things here, and then I'm happy to take questions. First, when you look at those who are facing homelessness, there's 3 steps. So the first one is homeless. And some people may be out on the street, and we do street outreach at COI. But many people are in a shelter situation, and we're trying to work with them in a shelter situation to get them housed. And there's different housing options. Some are permanent support housing, like what STEL does, with those who have a mental health diagnosis. Others may be transitional housing, but for the majority of people that we're working with, it's moving them back into an apartment where they're working with a landlord, and they're able to pay for their own housing themselves. exiting those services and then ultimately becoming self-sufficient. So the goal here is never that somebody is in a permanent homeless situation where they're back on their feet and able to find legal support themselves. And so along the way, these are all the service providers within our community who provide some of those services. COI, the street outreach, the shelter services there, the Department of Social Services, places those who are not able to have a specific shelter into motels. And then the Salvation Army, Kansas City Mission, and then COI also have a few other resources. But there is this gap for women, specifically for single women. That is the largest need in our community, and that's what this new project is going to address. Then we have some transitional housing, specifically by WCA, permanent supportive housing, that's STEL, recovery options, and then the rapidly housing is what I was speaking about, is helping people with first month's rent, getting them back into their own apartments. In 2021, in our county, there were over 1,000 people who accessed homeless services. The majority of those were male, but we don't have data for every, not every provider data on gender. We also see that the majority of those who are homeless are between 18 and 24, 48%, so the largest group. And just less than 10% that let us know that they have mental health disorder or have disability. However, we are seeing an increase in homelessness just since January, and this was actually run for about mid-February, so in the first 6 weeks of the year, we had 176 persons in homeless shelter throughout the county, 57% male, 33% female, and almost half of those were single adults. So that is actually an increase over what we would expect this time of year, so we're seeing a small increase at this time for homeless in our community. So we have long-term trends, which is an increase in homelessness in the community, and we also have short-term trends, I think based on the eviction moratorium ending in January, that are seeing probably will be a temporary surge in people coming into homeless services. The challenges, the lack of affordable housing right now, health and safety issues in rental housing, and lack of available units for those who are searching for housing. Some people are staying in emergency shelter a little bit longer right now because they're not able to find units. But there are resources available. COI has some funding from the state to help with first month. Well, actually, we can help with 6 months of arrears, as well as helping people with ongoing rent and security deposit assistance. And then legal assistance in Western New York is there for legal assistance. So those are some of the trends we're seeing in homelessness. But we're mostly very excited to talk about the project here because I think once this is in place, this is going to address a gap that we've seen in our community for homeless services. Any questions?
I'll, I guess, make a statement that I can attest on Mr. Reynolds, both of us being retired police officers for the city of Jamestown, that there is a definite need for women in our community. As it stands right now, the only location that they can go to generally to services is the Salvation Army, and then also the Agnes Home when it comes to domestic violence issues. But there's definitely a need in our community for a shelter for women. It's long overdue. So I think it's an excellent idea and an excellent program that you're presenting to us. I do have a couple of questions. You make a statement of our community. Is this going to fill the need of, like you said, our community, or do you plan on bringing women that are homeless from out of the area? In other words, are you going to bring homeless women from Dunkirk, Fredonia, Buffalo, or is this Jamestown or immediate surrounding of Jamestown?
The need for homelessness is largest in Jamestown in our county. And that's why many of the homeless providers are here, because that's where the largest number of homeless people are living in our community. I don't ever see anyone coming from outside of the county, so the shelters here.
So you don't plan on, I guess, recruiting, trying to bring people in to fill beds? Let's say if you have you have X number of beds, like you said, but you're only using 5 spaces or 7 spaces on average. And if you wanna fill the rest of the spaces, are you gonna put the word out, we have space,
I don't think so.
send people?
No, I think, when you have an 18-bed facility, you understand there's sometimes it's gonna be full, and there's sometimes where it may not be completely full based on the season or based on the need, but the 18 beds, I think will meet the need when we're at our high points, or we're not, that's fine.
If anything, I've actually seen that we've had to send people to Buffalo because there was no place here. And I can tell you from my own agency that when there was no place for them to go, we were contacting shelters in Buffalo to get these places safe because there just wasn't anything here. So I think it's been more of sending people out than bringing people in.
The other question is, how do you plan on handling like addiction issues or women possibly that show up or come back for the day and say they're under the influence of they've been using, they know like at the men's shelter that you can, if they're under the influence, they're not allowed to come in, from what I understand, and that's what we were always told. When we were working, we weren't allowed to bring someone there who was under the influence of either, drugs or alcohol. How do you plan on dealing with that?
So, that is a good issue, that is an important issue for anyone providing homeless services, and it's something that we work with those who are in our safe house, the youth shelter that we provide, and I think the policy is that it's a drug-free zone, the shelter is a drug-free area, and so anybody who is under the influence or who is in possession of drugs, that's gonna be putting their stay there in jeopardy. At the same time, we wanna work with people because we understand this is sort of the last resort for many people. So it could lead to another placement somewhere else, but I think that's a one-on-one decision based on the severity of the situation.
Sure. Thank you.
I'll concur with Councilman Russell, it's a definite need. I have a thought that some people live in their cars. Are you taking into any parking areas for any of these women that might own a car?
There's limited parking, obviously, based on the location. So I think we would try to work with them, but our experience is that that's not too common. No, that's pretty far between, and if that is the case, we would have a list to put it in priority.
And then lastly, the tenants per se, is there a limit on how long they can stay? I mean, do you have a rule of thumb for how expediting it could be to get them into another rental?
Yeah, we haven't set a specific target or a limit at this point. I think as we get experience, we may, but right now, the goal is always within 30 days, 60 days, so we want we want it to be a short-term placement.
Just a quick question to piggyback on. Councilman Russell, you mentioned staffing. Do you have an idea of the number of staffing and permanent and full-time and part-time?
Yeah, I think
How that's gonna work with,
it'll be 5 or 6 new staff persons, because it's a 24/7 facility, so it'll be 3 chefs. And probably during the day, we'll have additional staff because one person will be there just to keep security or to help people check in. Another person will be there to do intensive services with the women within the shelter.
So what you're saying is, going back to my experience, 2 o'clock in the morning, a Jamestown police officer has a female that has no place to go. Maybe they were involved in some domestic incident and they're not safe, and they don't have any children and there's no room at the Agnes house or anything. You're saying that officer could make a phone call, or dispatch could make a phone call, and you could possibly house someone at 2 in the morning?
Potentially, yeah, somebody will be on staff and available to do the intake of people.
Okay.
Well, I really appreciate it, thank you for that, because I know a lot of people have questions, and I think this is very reassuring to hear that you're fulfilling a need, that you've researched and you know, and not only are you providing the shelter, but you're providing the services to help them become stable again. And that, as Mr. Kemp pointed out, to get on with their life and get into something that's their own, and regroup and get back into the workforce.
Thank you.
You're doing God's work, sir.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from,
The director development, Crystal, is there anything you want to say?
Anything else for housing?
Briefly, I know you have a, I can report, but I think you probably don't want to.
I guess the only thing I'll say is we are working on our annual action plan. And we will be having some public engagement coming up, so that will be announced. We're looking to do, walking tours in each ward this year, which is something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We'll, have kind of the regular traditional style public meetings offered as well. But I guess more to come on that. Our annual action plan is due to HUD at the end of June, so, which is our regular, due date. So, yeah, more to come. Now, if you want me to address, I mean, I can go through, but I know it was quite a,
No, that's it, I just want to let people know you are underway with the annual action plan, and as you said, you want more engagement from the community and the public, so we're taking it to them, but there will be, for those who have mobility issues, there will be some stationary outlets that come, so they don't have to do the walking through the neighborhood.
Yep.
So, those that no resolutions, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to finance. Kim, you want
Sure.
to get through a bunch of stuff?
We did, we had quite the busy agenda. First resolution was warrants to be drawn to prospective owners in the sum of $386,916.28 for a public improvement bond issue of March 31st, 2021. It always comes up about what this was about. This was DPW parks equipment, fire department equipment, fleet management facility, and City Hall DPW heating and cooling upgrades. Second resolution was for, City Council adopted resolution number 200201C03, effective immediately until further notice, instituted a hiring freeze. So this is resolved immediately. The City Council suspends the hiring freeze and fills the vacancy position of a personal computer specialist in the Information and Technology Department. Again, this position was due to the sudden tragic loss of an employee. So this is to fill that budgetary position. Resolution number 3, passed by Finance, was resolved that Corporation Counsel Elliot Raimondo authorized to attend the NICOM annual meeting and training on May 4th through 6th at Sagamore Hotel in Bolton Landing, New York. Expenses paid pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Law. Again, that was approved. Resolution number 4, resolved that the City of Jamestown Management Employee Guidelines be and they hereby are further revised and updated, effective retroactively to January 1. Unfortunately, this is not moving forward out of finance. Again, I had asked for very detailed information out of this, including the financial impact of adding a holiday and some other information. So be happy to discuss that in detail with the mayor, of what we are looking for at a later time. But again, as it's written today, it's not moving forward from finance. Resolution number 5, resolved that the mayor is authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with the Jamestown Public School System, 197 Martin Road, for costs of the school crossing guards, subject to the approval of Corporation Council as to form. Just a note, I'm sure this was discussed in detail at Public Safety as well, but this is something that the city will be reimbursed for the costs of the crossing guards at the school in its entirety. The city will manage, and this is treated basically the same as the SRO officers, that type of reimbursement. Anything you want to add?
No, it's gonna be a big change. We're hoping to see a lot more crossing guards get hired at a better wage.
Right.
Make it more attractive.
Just to note, it is a wage increase, an hourly wage increase that is comparable. It's not
Significant.
exceeding the current, depending on what is finally decided. I'm not gonna make a statement on how much until it's locked in. Right? You think unless you wanna make it?
No, it's locked in.
Okay, then go ahead and give that salary, I'll let you do it.
No, we met with the superintendent and the school board, and it's a lot better wage. I can't remember the exact wage, but it's a lot more, over twice the amount of what they were being paid. So,
And it was like, it was a ridiculous salary, again, it's part-time, and again, this brings up to a equitable cost of living wage, even though it is about 2 hours a day, is that per
Yes.
person, so. But it's a good move for the city and for the schools, for the safety of the kids and everything else, so hopefully we can get those positions filled. Resolution number 6 was designating $110,000 and no cents in the ARPA lost revenue funds for the purpose of purchasing backup generators at Jamestown's fire stations 3, 4, and 5. This was approved by finance, and again, one of the top items that was requested by the fire department for building maintenance and things at the fire stations themselves. Number 7 was approved by finance, and that's designating $25,000 and no cents in ARPA lost revenue to the purpose of purchasing new entry doors at the Jamestown fire stations. Again, this is man doors at the fire stations with upgrades in security and other things for all of those outside stations in That was approved. Resolution number 8 is designating $92,000 and no cents in American ARPA lost revenue funds for the purpose of purchasing new overhead doors at the Jamestown fire stations. Again, this was approved. Again, this is the truck entry doors. Resolution number 9, designating $50,735.50 in ARPA funding for the purpose of completing the Station 5 truck floor renovation project. Glad to see this come out. It is something that is highly needed at that station, so this was approved as well. Resolution number 10, resolved that Mayor Eddie Sundquist and Chief Timothy Jackson being hereby authorized and directed to enter into an operating agreement with Jamestown Psychiatric PC, 305 East Fairmount Avenue, Lakewood, New York, 14750. Just want to note that this is a contractual item with the Jamestown Police Department for evals on employees, both for new hires and after traumatic situations, whatever the case may be. Budgeted item, and this was approved. I don't know if you guys want to add anything else to that.
Actually, civil service, the county handles new employees' evaluations. This is for current employees.
Okay. Resolution number 11 was authorizing the mayor and Jeff Lehman to purchase one new 2022 model LR 860E70 bucket truck from Altech Industries of Plains, PA via Sourcewell, New York State OGS contract number PC 685626 in the amount not to exceed $218,529 and no cents, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Just want to note that it was brought to our attention that this was actually well over the initial estimate of $180,000, but we're comfortable with that, with some funds and some other purchases. That was approved. Resolution number 12, authorizing the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman, PE, to purchase one new 2022 GMC 3500 dump truck from Jones Chevrolet of Warren, PA, in an amount not to exceed $51,556 and no cents. Again, this was the ARPA pre-approved that we approved a few months ago, and that was approved out of finance. Resolution number 13 is authorizing the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman to purchase one new 2022 trackless MT-7 from Joe Johnson Equipment of Rochester, New York, via the HGAC Cooperative Bidding Grid number GR01-20 in an amount not to exceed $151,547.10, subject to the approval of Corporation Council as to form. That was approved, again, in ARPA purchase from the funding pre-approved. And last out of finance was a resolution designating $483,000 and no cents in ARPA plan water, sewer, and broadband funds for the water main replacements on May Street in Gwendolyn. Again, this is an ongoing issue that needs addressed, and perfect fit approved by finance. I think that was it, but I do wanna note that, tonight alone, we had a total of $2,578,102 already appropriated out of ARPA lost revenue. We just approved through here in lost revenue, roughly 378 more thousand, for a total of $2,956,000, in addition to the 483 of the 2 million out of the water, sewer, and broadband. So projects are moving forward, and I just wanted to thank everybody for their work and patience.
And just to piggyback off that, Mr. Champ mentioned kind of the running totals, and I know our controller, Ryan Thompson, has been very good at keeping this going, and maybe it's something that we could have on the website.
We've been working actually this week in order to create various charts and graphs to put on the website. And we're also kind of waiting to do that in conjunction with the hiring of a project manager. But we do have those, and we certainly can put the PDFs up there. We just won't have interactive charts yet.
That's fine, just so if people want to see how much has been spent and where the money's gone so far, and the percentages and totals and so forth. Once you get that set, then you can just keep finding additional funds as they're expended down.
And also to note, I know Controller is meeting with the consultant that we approved last week in the very near future to go over all this information and the final ruling that was posted from the federal government on ARPA funding. And I have that document if anybody's interested in reading it as well.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to public safety. Brent?
Thank you. As Mr. Champ stated, we did address our committee, spoke about gun violence in the city and how to address that. Also, the public safety master plan that was proposed. We did have a discussion with the police chief and deputy fire chief about doing something like this, because the fire department had a plan, but it was done quite a long time ago. The police department really has never had any plan like this, so it's something that we want them to move forward with. Additional input from other department heads. Some of those council members can help out with that as well. So that's something we're looking forward to. We had 6 resolutions that all came through finance. We'll go over those. First one was authorizing the agreement with Jamestown Public Schools for the crossing guards. That was approved. Second was authorizing designating $110,000 in ARPA funds for purchasing backup generators at fire station 3.5. That was approved. Resolution designating $25,000 in lost revenue funds for the purchase of 5 new entry doors, main doors at the fire stations. That's stations 1 and 5. That was approved. Resolution designating $92,000 in lost revenue funds purchasing new overhead doors and 7 overhead doors at the fire stations. This will go up to bid. That was approved. Also, a resolution designating $50,735.50 in lost revenue funds for completing the Station 5 truck floor renovation project. Just a quick calculation, in the mayor's budget, he did have certain lost revenue fund projects listed. These 4 projects for the fire department last fall were listed at $385,000. These come in at $278,000, so it's $107,000 less than was listed. So more money for more projects or equipment. And finally, we also had the resolution, the mayor and Chief Jackson through the operating agreement with Jamestown Psychiatric PC 305 Fairmont Avenue Services. And that was approved as well. That's all we have from public safety.
Any questions for public safety? If not, we'll move on to public works.
Tim has addressed, under finance, what we have going. We did approve the bucket truck, and the small dump truck from Jones Chevrolet, and the trackless unit. And the number 4 resolution for the water, sewer, and broadband is still gonna be ongoing, I take it. But other than that, we approved the other 3.
These vehicles, do they have to go out for bid?
That, they are the state contracts, 2 of them, yep. And then,
Bid sheets were included in the packet for all the
Yeah.
vehicles.
Mhm.
You'll see the 2 bidders on most of them.
yep.
And then the last thing would be the West Third Street redesign plan. Who's doing that? Jeff?
This next item is just one page. Is the West Third Street improvements where we took down the canopy oaks a while back. Tonight I brought Mark Racher, the project engineer on this. For those of you who don't know him, step up and Mark is gonna walk you through what this project all entails.
So the project includes new sidewalks and aprons from Hall to Halleck along Third Street, as well as all new lighting. They're the typical candlestick lighting that we have down Third Street for the rest of Third Street across the bridge, as well as replacing trees along that stretch of road. The trees will be determined by the arborist and stone, but there'll be a variety of different species.
The thought being is we can work with the individual homeowners and kind of let them select what kind of tree Dan feels can go in front of their residents. Why don't you talk about the electric a little bit more?
So currently, on the south side of West Third Street, a lot of those homes are powered by electric lines that are behind the homes. And that creates an issue for the BPU with maintaining those lines, because often it's a small easement that the poles sit on, but there's no easement to get back to the poles themselves. So as part of this project, they're going to be, along with installing the lights, they're gonna be installing additional conduit underneath our sidewalks that then allows them to feed those houses from the street side. Still, all the lines will be underground, and they'll work with the individual homeowners to get easements to get into their houses. But they're gonna at least lay the conduit this year during this project, during this project at the same time as they're doing the conduit for the lighting itself. That's a major part of this project as well, is getting those poles out of the back of those people's yards so that the BPU can maintain those services easier.
Can I ask you then, because the people that are on the back side of those properties on Ellis, will there be poles on Ellis, or will they be hooked into Third Street? Because the lines you're talking about are between Ellis and Third. What?
The lines are between Ellis and Third. They run in the backyard, so what happens to the homeowner on Ellis, which is south of that line?
Again, they'll be working that out with the BPU. It's really not something Mark and I have been appraised of as far as each individual home, I guess.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're moving into Third for those people that it would be in their backyard, it's also in the backyard of the people on front, I mean, on Ellis.
Thought we'd have someone from the BPU here tonight, but
Okay, well, just because I know I'm getting questions already from people.
we do have a public informational meeting scheduled for next week.
Yeah, it's on Monday, at the Healing Ministry.
We'll have someone from the BPU there
I hope so.
to talk to each individual homeowner about the particular home.
Okay, well, I'm just concerned because you're right, but it affects homes on Third, but it also affects the homes on Ellis between Hall and Hallett. Okay.
before there are questions, just to add on for our council members and members of the public, we are just presenting a draft plan to you all. We are planning on having a community meeting on March 14th, which is a Monday night. There is no council that evening. It's at 6:30 p.m. and it's going to be at Healing Word Ministries Church, right off of 3rd Street there. There will be an actual presentation going through all the various types of trees that we will have, as well as the redesign of the sidewalk in the area. So as they mentioned, the entire sidewalk blocks will all be redone. While those are being lifted up, the BP will install the conduit underneath the sidewalks, correct? So that's one of the benefits, is going to be all new sidewalks, all new trees, the candlestick lighting to kind of bring the ambience of downtown, moving down that 3rd Street corridor, as well as a couple other improvements that you'll notice. But the meeting on Monday, March 14th, will actually have a full presentation for you all. And it's meant to elicit comments from the members that live there, the people that live there. We sent out over 100 letters to all of the residents on that area on Friday. Some of the residents are actually here tonight, and they haven't yet got the letter. I blame the post office. I'm not sure what's going on with them, but not you guys, the post office. So. But we did send that out. Press release, I think, went out today, and that should be in the paper as well. We want to use that feedback to create the final design plan. But again, we wanted to present all this to the council so that you all have a basis for it. Once we finalized it with any public input, then we'll come back for the total costs. We have a cost out of everything as is, but I had asked Jeff and his team and the rest of our planning department to hold off on finalizing that until we talk to the residents and get a final design. Questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Would you consider snow melt in that area regarding the ability to resistantly melt the snow at a specific temperature for resistance heating?
There's no intention right now to put any type of, are you asking for like heated sidewalks or heated streets?
I'm talking
or?
about minimal heat. We don't need much, but there's a possibility that we have an opportunity that's never been done before. We're talking about snow melt as being a problem. There's a possibility that it can be incorporated. Does it cost money? Yes, but I'm talking minimal heat, like 50 degrees.
Certainly one of the things we can consider once we talk to the residents. Not everyone might want that. We also have some internal meetings to talk about stormwater management for that area as well. Because if we do have a melting off of snow in a quicker fashion, we got to make sure that we can handle that. So we'll certainly bring that up. Take a look into it.
Any other questions? Now, again, the meeting it's a week from tonight, so we don't have a council meeting at 6:30 at the Healing Word Ministry. That's it for Public Works. Is there anything else before we get to the mayor's portion? If not, you're up.
Well, thank you to the residents that came for 3rd Street. If you have any questions, feel free to bring those to the meeting. In a shocking turn of events, I actually have no comments tonight or executive session items.
Okay, I get to eat early. Is there any other issues or questions or comments that anyone would
I just want to thank you for that, because it has been a tremendous issue for a lot of the residents on the 3rd Street area because of the trees going down. I know we've had people talk about they were upset that the trees were taken down. However, with wind events like we had over the weekend, I, for one, every time I went through that area, having seen one tree fall on a perfectly fine day in June with no wind event, no rain, and nearly missed one of my employees at my office who had just gone around the corner. It scared me to death to think what would happen if one of those trees came down and actually hurt someone. So as much as I love the trees, as hard as it was to see them go, I'm delighted to see a plan and that you're including the people in that neighborhood to be involved in deciding what is done in that neighborhood. But I know everyone was very sad to see the trees go down, but again, I think a lot of us are breathing a sigh of relief that they didn't come down and harm anyone. So you have to consider that against, as beautiful as they were. There was a time, as Dan Stone said, every tree has a lifespan. And unfortunately, we had to see the end of those things. But thank you for all you're doing. On behalf of the neighborhood, we look forward to the meeting on the 14th. and hope to get as much input as we can from the community so that we'll have a bigger and better project. Thank you.
It was obviously very contentious, when those trees came down. There was many comments on social media, phone calls made to council members. So I guess I encourage people, instead of taking to social media with your comments, or phone calls, come to the meeting in person, and voice your concerns or comments about the project that's coming up. Don't stand in the background, step forward and get involved.
Just another comment too about, we all went through it, and everybody, as I said before, everybody who knows Dan knows that's the last thing that Dan Stoner would want to do. And he's an arborist, he's a tree lover, he knows every tree in the city. And he works so well with homeowners and with council people and neighborhoods and managing our urban forestry. And again, I concur with everyone. It was tough to see them go, but I always use the example, if you look in Lakewood, they had several years ago the same situation on Chicago Avenue. Now they're doing the upper end of it, they did the lower end of it, people were upset, and those trees are already half grown, and they look great. And it's starting over. It's just another generation, and 50, 60 years from now when we won't be here, our kids and our grandkids hopefully will enjoy that. So it's a rebirth for that street with new lighting, new sidewalks, new trees, and just starting another generation. And I was teasing Dan the other day because now he's attacking the north side. So, just kidding. That was just a joke. We've been taking a lot of trees down up there that needed to come down. So. And they have a plan, right, John?
We do.
Good. Eachview Avenue has a plan. So, very good. So we'll see everybody, or not everybody, you're all welcome to come next week if you're available. You're invited at 6:30 at Church on 3rd Street.
I believe it's also St. Patrick's Day.
No,
Is that the 14th? Is that the one?
No,
That's the
14.
No.
It's always St. Patrick's Day for Irish, but no.
It's true.
We can bring
St.
some
Patrick's is Thursday.
green cookies or beer or something.
There you go.
Anybody else have anything? If not, meeting's adjourned.